Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. We have a Wednesday edition of the show. That is typically when we do our preview and breakdown of the Bucs' next game. And this one, it is the Bucs against the Atlanta Falcons. A little bit of a different situation and setting going on in this one because the Bucs, as all of you Bucs fans know, are the champions of the NFC South. They have clinched that division and cannot move any higher in the seedings based on their record, where the Atlanta Falcons, on the other hand, are eliminated from playoff contention. So a whole lot of nothing to play for the Buccaneers, depending on who you ask. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is Scott Reynolds of PewterReport.com. And Scott, this isn't your typical Bucs versus a division rival matchup. It's a little bit different this week.
Yeah, it really is. And it kind of stars around the quarterback position. We don't know. We do know Tom Brady is going to play. We don't know how much. We don't know if we're going to see Kyle Trask. Todd Bowles did talk about possibly playing all three quarterbacks today in his press conference. So it's interesting. That's kind of the focus today is if Brady's going to play. That probably means Donovan Smith would be the starter at left tackle. You'd want to do that, but Donovan didn't practice today. Neither did, I think, Vita was out as well. So
correct.
There's a couple of injuries that they want to monitor and see if having a full week off or maybe a half off would help this team. And we do have some breaking news. Bucs wide receiver Mike Evans just won the NFC Offensive Player of the Week award. And we knew it was either going to be Evans or Tom Brady getting this award, right? 432 passing yards for Brady, 3 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. That's a massive day for Tom. At the same time, it's not often that you see a receiver score 3 touchdowns in a game or go over 200 yards. Evans did that, 10 catches, 207 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So I'm going to be getting that story up on PewterReport.com here in just a second, Matt. But we've got a lot of stuff to get to from today's open locker room session. We'll take a look at the Atlanta Falcons. This is a team that really, for 2 years now under Arthur Smith, has kind of gone nowhere. Yeah. And you have to wonder with Arthur Blank, how much patience does this owner have? You have to think, unless the Falcons somehow beat a Buccaneer team that is resting its starters, only playing the starters for a quarter or a half, they're going to have a losing record for sure. That's already guaranteed. And they could be ending the season on another down note with the Buccaneers, who Tom Brady is 11-0 against the Falcons all time, including several wins as a Buccaneer. So I just don't know what the future holds for Arthur Smith in Atlanta and really how patient Arthur Blank in that organization is going to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Scott, because you've talked about before and you've seen a lot of coaching changes with the Buccaneers. And typically, as you said in the past, the Bucs will wait at least – they'll give a coach at least 2 seasons to try to figure something out before they decide to get rid of him. You've highlighted the fact that Lovie Smith didn't even win a game at home.
That's right.
For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he was still given a second season. So each ownership is different. Some are a little more patient than others. Some are ready to rip the cord almost right away. So it'll be interesting because, especially for the Falcons too, for the Panthers, I think with Matt Rule before he got fired, he could have made the case like, hey, I haven't really gotten a quarterback just yet. But for the Falcons, it's different because Arthur Smith, you still had Matt Ryan. If you want to say, all right, well, he was an aging veteran, sure. But then they brought in a guy that Arthur Smith has worked with before, and they have a rookie as well with Desmond Ridder. So you're talking about 3 different quarterbacks now that Arthur Smith's been able to work with. Can he really go back to ownership and say, hey, just give me a good quarterback, give me a quarterback that I can draft within the first 10 to 15 picks, and then we really got something there. This is a very impatient league, whether you like it or not. People want immediate results, and that's why you see quarterbacks starting right away. Not everyone has the luxury of Aaron Rodgers back in the day, or Patrick Mahomes, or Kyle Trask even. I'm not putting Kyle Trask in that same category. I just can't. I just wanted to say that anyway. So a really tough situation for Atlanta right now. Whether or not they can bring in their, uh, or whether or not, sorry, that Arthur Smith will remain the head coach for next season. I think Bucs fans would probably hope that Arthur Smith is the head coach for next season, especially. Wow, that's a that's an interesting graphic right there. I didn't even know we had that one in the hopper to use. That's
Yeah, I didn't make it. It was the Falcons graphic, but that was when he was hired, and and you just look at the record this year, and they're 6-10 right now. They're either going to be 7-10, which is 3 games under 500, or they're going to be 6-11, which would be my guess. And so I just don't know if the if you look at this ownership group in Atlanta, and they see the Buccaneers now winning the NFC South twice, and Carolina under Steve Wilkes, is that going to continue? It seems like the Panthers are a little bit further ahead than the Falcons. Falcons won, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games last year. So it's either going to be a regression or it's going to be a stagnation, right? Because
right.
they were 7-10 last year. So I just don't know what the future holds. I think Atlanta had a good draft class, and the thing too is when you look at Atlanta, they have a kind of a unique system in that it's very run heavy oriented. You've got a quarterback in Marcus Mariota who's now out for the year with an injury, but he was a pretty good fit for that system. He just continued to make mistakes, very much like Jameis Winston, his 2015 counterpart in the draft, just couldn't overcome the mistakes to make up, for some of the, or I should say, couldn't make enough big plays to overcome the mistakes that he made. That was kind of the tale of Winston and Mariota. Looking back at that 2015 draft when they went 1-2, Winston to Tampa Bay, and then of course to Tennessee goes Marcus Mariota, and that's where Arthur Smith came from. And with that run heavy, Derrick Henry type of ground game, and that's what he's tried to build here in Atlanta. And one of the running backs that Atlanta drafted was a player that I liked a lot. I think you did too, coming out of the draft, and that was Tyler Algier out of BYU. A really solid rookie season so far. Obviously, Cordero Patterson started the season as the running back. He's now kind of ceded some of those carries and duties to Algier. He also missed some time with an injury, but Algier, 900 yards rushing, a healthy 4.8 yard average. He's got a 44-yard run, which is the longest run of any Falcons player this year, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. They've still turned to Patterson more towards the goal line, even though Algier is a big back. But I think he's got a bright future. They also drafted Drake London in the first round, kind of a Mike Evans clone. Not good as good as Evans is, but still 66 catches, 746 yards, 4 touchdowns. And he just doesn't have that elite quarterback throwing to him. And one of the players they drafted this year, and again, talking about the Atlanta draft, which I thought was a pretty solid draft class, is Desmond Ridder. And we're going to see how Desmond Ridder fares in what will be his fourth start. He's played in 3 games. I guess this would be his third start. He's completed 63.5% of his passes, 484 yards, has not really done much with the deep ball in terms of testing defenses with his arm. His longest completion is only 26 yards this season at 85 attempts. No touchdowns, but no interceptions. He's been sacked 7 times. He does have some mobility, which is, again, part of that Arthur Smith scheme. And he's rushed for 55 yards on 14 carries. Nothing to write home about. No touchdowns on the ground. And more importantly, I think for Atlanta and their fans, the Desmond Ridder era has ended with, or I should say, started with a couple of losses. One to New Orleans, 21-18, a 17-9 loss at Baltimore, and then they did beat the Cardinals, much like the Bucs did in a close game, 20-19. But I just don't know. I think the Bucs were kind of like lukewarm on Ridder. Is he the future there? I'm not sure. And I think more importantly is if they go in a different direction, you've kind of drafted some of these players. Not that Drake London can't play in any system or Tyler Algier can't run in any system, but they're really kind of geared more for this Arthur Smith type of offense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And to your point about the running backs with Algier, I mean, the last game they beat the Cardinals by a very narrow margin,
Yeah.
very much like the Bucs on Christmas. And Algier had 20 rushing attempts, where Cordell Patterson only had 9 rushing attempts.
Yeah.
Now, Patterson obviously was still using the passing game, so the Falcons are still getting usage out of him. But it looks like slowly but surely Algier's going to be that number one guy, and obviously Patterson's been in the league for a long time, so you don't know like how that's going to change from season to season. And this is kind of what you get at this time of the year when you're eliminated from the playoffs, especially at the quarterback position. You go, hey, let's take a shot with this guy. Let's see if Desmond Ridder is the future. And that's why I am really intrigued to see if Kyle Trask will play this week for the Buccaneers, because it is a very rare occurrence that any team, when you clinch a playoff spot, the conference, the division, that doesn't happen all the time. A lot of the times you have to do it in the final week of the season.
Yeah.
It is
hey, look no further than the NFC East, right? With the Eagles blowing it the last 2 weeks and not clinching, and you've got Dallas right there nipping on their heels.
And it makes it even extremely rare that an 8-8 team does not have to play anything in the final week of the season to determine whether or not they make the playoffs. So that's why I really want to see Kyle Trask in this game. And Scott, we can get your thoughts on if you think any of the starters should play, why they're playing, what the end-all be-all is going to be about it. But I just think with Kyle Trask, whether it's next season or the season after, they eventually are going to have to make a decision, not just on Trask, but who is going to be the starting quarterback of the future. And obviously, every year you get the mishmash of veteran quarterbacks that have been good at times, and then all of a sudden they taper off. And then it's like, have they just been in one system too long?
Yeah.
Can they get a fresh start? Derek Carr, obviously, is the guy that we're all thinking about this year. Or do you go with the new, a rookie in the draft class? Is there a specific quarterback that you like? Eventually, the Bucs have to make a decision on that, and we can look at all of the preseason games. We can look at all the training camps. Get him some live action against the Falcons team that I imagine are going to play their starters. They want to end the season with the win. They want to beat the Bucs, a division rival.
Oh, yeah.
Get Kyle Trask some important playing time. That's just my opinion, but I'm
I
curious
agree.
to know what you think.
It's a big decision. It almost, to me, rivals what Celsius I'm going to drink in the morning, Matt. It really does. Do I go with the new Arctic vibe, or do I go with some old standby favorites like the tropical vibe and the peach vibe? So many decisions to make. But the one thing that Celsius makes really easy is the 7 essential vitamins that they pack in every single drink. Folks, this is the healthiest energy drink, I think, that's on the face of the earth. And it's also the tastiest, too. The peach vibe, it tastes like you're having a peach. The tropical vibe, it's a wonderful blend of tropical fruit. The Arctic vibe is a frozen berry. It's a fantastic drink. The orange is my favorite, my go-to. I'll probably have that 3 or 4 times a week, but I do like to blend in these other flavors. You see the watermelon, that's my wife Ashley's favorite, wild berry. And if you don't like the sparkling flavors, they also have some green tea additions, including a mango peach that is really good as well. My daughters both like that. So aside from the flavor, what you're going to get from Celsius is the energy that you want without the crash. And why does that happen? Because there's no sugar to have a sugar crash later on. Who wants to have energy for a couple hours and then 4 hours later, like other energy drinks, you have this crash? Because there's no sugar in Celsius and there's no preservatives. So you're getting all the flavor, all of the energy that you need, and you're getting it shipped right to your door, folks, when you use Amazon. That's right. Go to Amazon and buy Celsius in bulk. Use the subscribe and save option like I do. Save some money and get Celsius shipped right to your door whenever you want it. You can set it for weekly, bi-weekly, bi-monthly editions. You can have Celsius at your doorstep whenever you want it. Again, go to Amazon.com and order it with the subscribe and save. You can also find out where to get Celsius around you by going to Celsius.com, clicking on the store locator, and maybe finding the nearest, I don't know, bodega that carries Celsius.
Bodega. Yeah, great question from Jay
Yes.
Anitra.
Very
Are they
important
located
question.
in bodegas? Yes, they are
Yes, they are.
located in bodegas. So find the local one near you and make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink and sponsor of the Pewter Report.
Matt, you asked me a question about the quarterbacks, and if I kind of want to see all three play for selfish reasons. Number one, I want to see Tom Brady play just because he's perfect against the Atlanta Falcons. He's 11-0, right?
Yeah.
So I would like to see Tom go 12-0, and Tom Brady wants to play. He does. I also want to see Blaine Gabbert play just because Blaine is one hell of a handsome man, and
a hero.
And a hero. Look at he's doing the Superman hero pose right here on the graphic. He looks like a hero. All it's missing is the cape. So part of me wants to see Blaine Gabbert play just because I'm curious what Gabbert 2.0 would look like, right? We've only seen glimpses of that, hardly any this year. But you go back, he played half against the Detroit Lions back in 2020.
And was fantastic in that game.
And was fantastic. 2 touchdown passes. It was fantastic. I also want to see Kyle Trask. But here's my caveat with Trask, right, who is yet to dress for any NFL game outside of a preseason game, right? We do believe he's going to dress this week. That's kind of what Todd Bowles alluded to. My only thing with Trask is all we've ever seen him with really is either number 2s or number 3s.
Correct.
I don't know what this guy can do with the starters. I don't know what type of deep ball he would throw to a Mike Evans, right? I don't know how he would find a Chris Godwin down the seam for 24 yards, right? I don't know what that wide receiver screen to Chris Godwin or to Devin Tompkins would look like, right? Coming out of his hand, going down the line of scrimmage. I don't know what those checks are at the line of scrimmage to a run by Rachaad White or Leonard Fournette. I don't know how he would handle the pocket being protected by the likes of Tristan Wirfs or Donovan Smith. So to me, as much as I want to see Trask, I don't necessarily want to see him with a handful of starters in the fourth quarter of a game, either with the Buccaneers up or the Buccaneers down against the Falcons starters. I don't think that's a really honest measuring stick. So to me, I'm almost of the opinion you give Brady a couple series, have him put some points on the board. Remember, the Buccaneers jumped out to a 21-0 lead the last time they played the Falcons. I think they can accomplish that again. We'll see. We'll see if this offense can do some magic 2 weeks in a row. It's been a rarity this year. But Matt, it just seems to me, and nothing against Blaine Gabbert, right? But I'd like to see a couple series from Brady, maybe a quarter, maybe even a half, but then keep those starters in. Whoever's going to play, keep those guys in for Kyle Trask and give him a more honest, fair shot to see what he could do.
I'm 100% with you. And Brady's going to play because Tom Brady does what Tom Brady wants to do. And if he wants to play, he's going to play. In a perfect world, what would happen is Tom Brady only plays like 2 series, and they just go no huddle the whole time. So Byron can quiet the critics, of which is pretty much everyone, of like, see, I went no huddle with Tom Brady.
Right.
The Bucs jump out to like a 14-0 lead, probably more realistically a 10-0 lead.
Yeah.
And then I'm with you. We love Blaine. Again, he's a hero. I don't really need to see Blaine Gabbert out there. I know what Blaine Gabbert is going to give the Bucs. I feel okay about the fact that if Blaine Gabbert has to play one game for the Bucs and win it, I think he can do it for one game. Kind of like how Nick Foles did it years ago for the Eagles when they beat Tom Brady and the Patriots. I know that Blaine Gabbert is the guy that's going in if all hell breaks loose and Tom Brady is not available.
Right.
But I'm so with you because it just turns into another preseason game. If Kyle Trask comes in and he's throwing to Scotty Miller and Brashad Perryman and Devin Tompkins will probably still be in because he's a rookie. I want to see Kyle Trask throw it to Chris Godwin. And I think Godwin might be in the game because of, getting the 1,000 yards. You just had a story about that recently.
Think he will.
How he could break the receptions record. Let's see Kyle Trask with some chemistry with Chris Godwin. Hey, let's remember, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they also played with Jameis Winston. They've played with other quarterbacks. They make other quarterbacks great. So I would love to see Kyle Trask in that situation? Because to your point with the measuring stick, what are we really learning about Kyle Trask if he's going to throw a screen to Keyshawn Vaughn? And
Right.
that's no disrespect to Keyshawn Vaughn, but
Right,
he
but we've
gets
seen that, right? We've
yeah,
seen that in the preseason, right? Let's
yeah,
see him with an Evans, with a Godwin. Let's see him with Fournette and Rashad White, and let's see what he can do with a pocket with Donovan Smith, Tristan Wirfs, and the starting offensive line, right? I think
yes.
that will give this team, even if it's a brief glimpse, a quarter, a half, three quarters, whatever, it'll tell them something more that they don't already know, right?
Yes, exactly. And to the point about Brady playing, and there's talks of Brady wants to keep his undefeated record against the Atlanta Falcons, which I get that, kind of stick it to a team one more
Yeah,
time. But if you're only going to play a quarter or a half or whatever, you get the win-loss decision whether or not you're in the game the whole time. So, like, what
right,
if he comes in, they're up like last game, 21 nothing, or they go up 28 nothing.
right.
They won't go 28 nothing. Say he leaves the game with the lead, they blow it, and now it's like, oh, he has a loss against the Falcons. That's
Right,
not great. Or what if he leaves
right,
the game, they're tied, and then Kyle Trask balls out or Blaine Gabbert balls out, and the Bucs ended up winning. Tom Brady
right.
always talks about earning it, and like it's more fulfilling when you go out and earn it. Is Tom Brady really going to feel like he earned that win and stayed
Right.
undefeated against the Atlanta Falcons? I don't necessarily think so. So I,
Yeah.
I get what Brady's going for. And you know what? You want to stay undefeated against the Falcons? Just don't play. The record doesn't
Yeah.
change then either. So,
That's true. That's
and
a
like,
very good
how
point.
much are they really going to like? Todd Bowles is saying today, oh, we still have a lot of things we got to fix. We got a lot of problems. Dude, you're in the last week of the season. Like, sure, there are some things you want to fine tune,
Yeah.
but to say we still have all of these problems, that's not great going into the playoffs. And we know a lot of the issues with the
Yeah.
Bucs. I just I didn't love hearing that being like, we got a lot of things to fix. Well, you have 1 week to figure that out, and then it's do or
Right.
die every single game on the
Yeah.
line.
We have a couple super chats to get to, Matt, and we appreciate
Yeah.
Zachary Jarvis for his 4.99 super chat. I heard they might push the playoffs back a week because of the Bengals versus Bills game. Just want to know your thoughts on it. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. The NFL's in some uncharted territory here, right? With what happened on Monday night, very tragic situation with Damar Hamlin, and
Yeah.
it's certainly a rarity, right? This is something that is highly, highly, highly unusual, where you have this type of an injury that requires an ambulance to come on the field and to take someone to the hospital due to a cardiac issue, right? We've seen plenty of broken bones. We've seen neck injuries, right, where they're very careful and they'll board somebody up and take them to the hospital. Concussions, we've seen some serious concussions, but nothing to this level. And certainly it's uncharted territory, and because we're so late in the season, man. This is not week
Yeah.
5 where you can adjust some things with teams bye weeks and maybe make some adjustments to team schedules. Right now, the playoffs start next week. You've got this week, which is week 18. You've got division races, playoff seeding still in play and around both conferences. I don't know what the right answer is. I read a couple of suggestions on Pro Football Talk. I don't know what the right answer is to this because they've kind of it's tough. I understand them not continuing to play the game. I was in favor of them
Yes.
stopping
Agreed.
the game and not playing it. I almost think you have to. Um, I don't know. It's tough to even call the game because they were only in the first quarter of the game was
Yeah, it's first
7-3.
quarter. Yeah, it was 7-3. It was still very early in the first
Yeah,
quarter. I think the most important thing, though, of course, is the health of Damar Hamlin, and
yeah,
our thoughts and prayers are
no doubt.
with him, and that's obviously a really really scary situation. And I know we're all hoping for the best. I'll keep talking about it in a moment, but Todd Bowles did talk about Damar Hamlin
Yeah,
today,
let's
so
get to
I'll
that.
just play his video about what he had to say about the situation.
Oof. I mean, your heart goes out to the family. You don't want to make it about yourself when you see a guy go down. You really want to make it about them and the team. And the guys that were on the field that actually saw it. You know, it was heartbreaking, and it still is. You know, and I have 2 kids that play football coming up, and you know, you think about that part of it, and having played myself, you know, we chose to play this game, and helps you appreciate the little things that you think have going on in your life when you see something like that happen. So my heart just goes out to the family, and you know, I hope he gets better.
Did your player?
It's even more about football at that point. It's about his health, his family, and everything that goes with it. So that's the most important thing. And I mean, we haven't really seen anything like this before. I mean, it was absolutely the right call to end the game right there, to call the game.
Yeah.
And I think we're all taking the right amount of time to process this, talk about it, send our thoughts and prayers, and then eventually we'll worry about when can they play the game, because that was a battle for first place in the AFC. So I'm with you. I don't know what the right answer is.
Right.
They will have to figure out who is.
Yeah. And you know what? The league doesn't know what the right answer is either, because if they did, they would have said what they're going to do. And so you have to operate from an element of fairness, right? Because this is a league it's a competitive league. And there are a couple of mechanisms in place to give advantages to other teams. Like if you win your number 1 seed, which the Bills were and still are in contention for, you do get a bye, right? And so that means you have one less chance of losing en route to the Super Bowl. You have one last game to get players injured en route to the Super Bowl. So it's not like this is a Monday night game without any real consequences, right? I mean, it's not like it's the Saints and the Panthers where it doesn't matter, right? You're talking about 2 playoff teams here in the AFC that this game kind of does matter. And then you have to kind of look at the fairness aspect of it too, is every other team will have played 8 or 17 games over an 18-week schedule. And you have 2 teams, the Bills and the Bengals, that did not play a full 17 games, right? And so that's, hey, we saw Tristan Wirfs get injured in an overtime game, right? And injuries are a big part of this. So I don't know what the right answer is. I know the right answer was stopping the game on Monday, but they're so late in the season. I don't know what the right answer is, not just for the Bills and the Bengals, but for all of the AFC teams with how this affects playoff seeding.
No, exactly. Because if you push the playoffs back a week, well, then every team that was supposed to play essentially gets a bye. So it favors everyone except for the Bengals and the Bills. And then the winner of that game, they won't be playing for 2 weeks because they would have won the number 1 seed. You have the bye because of everything that went on, and then the bye because you earned the number 1 seed. And at that point, it's kind of like, I don't know if you want 2 weeks off, because you want to talk about rest versus rust. I mean, having 2 weeks off and then playing a team that just came off an emotional, I don't care who it is, but the playoffs, you win a playoff game, that's an emotional win, regardless of what it is. And I feel awful because, like, you're not putting the blame on the injury. Like, that's super serious, and that needs to be handled no matter what, first and foremost. It's just a really, really bad situation overall. There's no right answer. There's no right answer.
You're right. There's no right answer. And listen, I tell my kids all the time, listen, life isn't fair. Don't expect fairness because life isn't fair. It just isn't. The league tries to make it as fair as possible, right? I don't even think Thursday night games are fair, to be perfectly frank with you.
It's a money grab.
It is. It's a money grab because you're putting these players that have just laid it all on the line, and a football game is the equivalent of a car crash in terms of the wear and tear on the body, especially in the trenches. And so you have a game on Sunday, and then you're telling players you don't get a full 6 days to rest, and not just rest, but practice and recover. You get 2 days, or 3 days really, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3 days off of your recovery time, and you got to play again. That's not fair. So I don't know what the right answer is. The league will tell us sooner rather than later, and we'll see if it affects the Buccaneers. But Teddy with the super chat here, $20. Teddy. We appreciate it. You think we make too much of Trask still being the third string? To me, it made sense that Blaine, who knows the system playbook better than anyone, would be second, even if Trask outplayed him. because Brady likes having his brain around. That's exactly true. We reported that. That's a completely factual statement there, Teddy. The one thing I'll add is this preseason and training camp, more so than any, Matt, was set up for Kyle Trask to take the step to beat out Blaine Gabbert. There were 10 days of practice and a full preseason game where Tom Brady wasn't there, didn't participate. And Blaine Gabbert elevated his play in the preseason, probably had his best preseason and training camp he's ever had. Not enough to be a starting caliber quarterback, but to hang on to that number 2 job. And Kyle Trask didn't. Kyle Trask made some strides, had some good practices. He had a lot of turnovers in training camp. And Matt, you were there for all of it. I don't know that Trask did much to win that number 2 job. So it doesn't surprise me that he's number 3.
No, it doesn't surprise me either. I think the number one thing was just the amount of turnovers in training camp. Now, you could look at it in one sense and say, okay, he's learning when he can fit the ball into that pocket. I think red zone really comes to mind for me. You could fit it in there and when not to throw it. And I think there's a balance of learning when to take risks in training camp and when you just got to go out and do your thing. But I think everyone, I mean, there were some practices where Kyle Trask flat out just like fell apart in training camp. And, that'll happen from time to time, but it didn't happen with Blaine Gabbert. When he was a rookie, I think, that's not really cause for concern. He's learning the league. Take a crack at it next season. But I think the best example is that Tom Brady wasn't there, and it was just Kyle Trask and Blaine Gabbert. Even with Tom Brady not there, shout out Ryan Griffin, Tulane, with the big win the other day.
Yes.
Ryan Griffin still wasn't even used. It was a 2-man show with the 2 of them. And any media people watching, I think you all saw that Blaine Gabbert was the better player. So I really think that is concerning that a second-year guy can't beat out a veteran that's been in this league for over 10, 11 years now. I understand he's not going to be up there with the knowledge of the game, and Gabbert obviously had a huge advantage being in this offense. But that excuse can only take you so far, all right? Yeah. And I think next training camp, and we don't know if Blaine Gabbert will be here. It's the last year of his deal. We don't know if Tom Brady will be here.
Right.
We don't know if Ryan Griffin will be here. But Ryan Griffin will be here. He will, for as long as Ryan Griffin wants to be here. He will.
In some form or fashion, yes.
Yeah. If Kyle Trask doesn't earn it next training camp, I know we're talking about way in the future now, but if Kyle Trask doesn't earn it next season, I don't know if he ever will. So that's why I want to see him in the game. Show me something where we can come on this podcast, where we can write about it, where we can go on WDAE and talk about it. Show me something where I can say, well, he did this, this, and this good. If he can improve on that, and if he can work on this area and get that straightened out, I think the Bucs might have something here. But until then, it is a concern. It is a concern that he can't even dress on game days. And part of that is the Bucs only want to keep two quarterbacks.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know. I think there's something to be said about that.
Yeah. Well, let's hear what Todd Bowles had to say about the starting quarterback this week and the quarterbacks in general, and also Kyle Trask.
Yeah, we'll start with what Bowles said on Monday about wanting to play the starters, just to add a little bit of context. Then we'll talk about dressing Kyle Trask, and then we'll get to Kyle Trask himself. So bear with us.
Your offensive line. How do you weigh the potential of losing a key player that would greatly affect your chances the next week?
I mean, it's football. You can't play 16 games and then worry about the 17th. You can't play 3 preseason games and 16 games in practice every day and say he may get hurt on the 17th game. He can get hurt the first week, he can get hurt in training camp. If you worry about that, you're probably going to get hurt anyway. We signed up to play football and coach football. That's what we're going to do. And everybody that loves football, that loves to play, will play the game. Injuries are going to happen. Doesn't mean it happens in week 17, a playoff game, or preseason. You just got to coach it and you got to play it. If you worry about injuries, you probably don't need to be playing this sport.
Would you consider pulling some players after maybe the first half? I think we've seen that in the past a couple of years ago with your Super Bowl, when the Detroit game, when Blaine stepped in the second half.
Yeah, it's possible. Like I said, it's early in the week. We haven't made any decisions yet. We haven't met on it. We haven't talked about it. Everything's up on the table. We'll talk about it and we'll move forward from there.
Knowing there might be a situation if
he may dress, he has a good chance of dressing.
How does he handle being for so long? I mean, obviously, you know, he works and doesn't get rewarded, so to speak, on Sunday, but how is he?
Since he's been here, every time I look out my window, he's out there working on his own. He has the greatest resolve and toughness and inner strength almost than any person I've seen. A young guy coming out, he prepares every day. When his time comes, he's going to be ready because I see him working at it every day. He has inner toughness, he has inner strength, and he has the drive and the will to win. So if you put that together, given the opportunity, I think he's going to take advantage of it.
And last but not least, Kyle Trask talking about his
Mhm.
preparation with the chance of playing this week.
You know, I'm just going to keep preparing like I've been, you know, the past 2 years. I think I take a lot of pride in, you know, preparation and knowing the game plan, treating every day as if I'm the starter. You know, if I am going to get the chance to play, maybe watch a little more film just to make sure I'm extra clear on my reads and things like that. But, you know, if I do get the opportunity to go, then I'll be really excited and try to make the most of it.
There's nothing you can exchange for live reps, though, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the ultimate experience is live reps. So if I get those will be priceless. You know, hopefully I'll be able to make them that good.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I want to go back to what Todd Bowles said just a second about Trask. I'm always a kind of a big believer in the concept of nobody has to give you a compliment, right? It would have been easy for Todd Bowles to sit there and say, we like him. His development's right on schedule, and he practices hard, and we think he's got a bright future. Like it could have just been something as simple.
We ask of him.
Yeah, and exactly. I'm blasé as that, but it wasn't, and he expanded on it and kind of was really glowing and took it several sentences where it could have been, hey, Trask, he's like you said, he's everything we want him to be as a backup. You're doing all the right things, and he'll get his shot one day, right? Could have been simple and generic, but it wasn't. So that tells me that Todd Bowles does think very highly of Kyle Trask. Matter of fact, if Tom Brady doesn't return next year, Trask, will be in the mix to start. I don't think Blaine Gabbert will be coming back. Just a preference thing. I think Blaine was a Bruce Arians guy. I don't know if I think that Todd Bowles likes and appreciates Blaine Gabbert, the person, but the quarterback that he's faced every day in practice for the last couple of years with his defense, probably seen enough to where he knows that Blaine is not going to be the guy. That's okay. Blaine has a future, I think, saving people. He's a hero. But with Trask, we just haven't seen enough. And that kind of goes back to the point Matt and I were making earlier. If you're going to play him with Evans, play him with Godwin, at least a quarter, just to see what he can do. If he goes out there and all he's left to throw to is Scotty Miller and Rashad Perriman and Devin Tompkins, it's just going to be like another preseason game, and you're not going to get a real fair assessment to really gauge how much progress he's made. Granted, it'll be going up against a Falcons starting defense rather than a bunch of preseason scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you get a better glimpse at what he can do, but I'd like to see him with the full arsenal of weapons and see how effective he can be at moving the chains, scoring points, things like that.
This game actually makes it pretty tough to bet on because we don't know how many quarterbacks are going to play or for how long. But maybe you're a true believer in Kyle Trask and you think he's going to light it up if he gets into the game. You can go and bet on the Bucs over at mybookie.ag. It's a new year and a new you, so give yourself a fresh start with MyBookie. Whether you bet to earn or to make the games more exciting, MyBookie gives you the most for your money with their redesigned deposit bonus. Just use the promo code Pewter, that's PEWTER, on a deposit of $50 or more to receive a cash bonus instantly to your MyBookie account. Using this bonus is simple. Bet your deposit amount just once, just one time, and you're ready to cash out. It's a no strings attached thing with MyBookie.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, you have to love that. No strings attached. Bet on the NFL this week, the UFC, or play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly online blackjack tournaments. With so many brands to choose from, you need a platform that makes it simple to bet and win, like MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with mybookie.ag. This new deposit bonus is also a 10% cash bonus on any first-time deposits up to $2,000. The minimum deposit is $50 and the maximum bonus is $200. And the bonus only has a one-time playthrough amount, which means that the bonus doesn't lock you in or focus on the cash in, cash out aspect of the bonus and not the percentage amount. So once again, cash in, cash out with mybookie.ag. Use the promo code Pewter. You could also double your deposit on your first deposit there, get a bonus. And even if you learn from Plant City Math, you know that that is a heck of a deal. So start betting away with mybookie.ag.
Yeah. Matt, speaking of betting, I don't think the NFL is rigged at all. I think it's a legitimate sports enterprise. And of course, there's gambling mixed in, but I don't think that it's rigged. However, one thing you and I talked about in terms of rigging is we kind of figured Mike Evans would win the NFC Offensive Player of the Week award, right? That we knew that Brady and Evans were going to be favored 1 and 2, right? Just in terms of what they were able to do on Sunday. Again, Evans won the NFC Offensive Player of the Week award, 10 catches, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was one of the best days of any Bucs wide receiver, certainly for Evans as well. But we also kind of figured, man, I have to give you credit for this. You said, watch Evans win the NFC Offensive Player of the Week award, and then, watch Tom Brady win that FedEx Air NFL Player of the Week award. And sure enough, we just got notification from the league that that's exactly what happened. Tom Brady, with his 432 passing yards and 3 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, and completing 75.6% of his passes in that 30-24 victory over the Carolina Panthers, won the FedEx Air NFL Player of the Week award. So the Buccaneers have a pair of
winners,
individual game winners, and this is a live reaction from Tom Brady. He's very happy about it. He's waving. He's like, "Thank you for the award. Appreciate it."
He's doing that. He's also waving to his haters because he's
That's
had
right.
a lot of haters the last
That's
couple of weeks for his performances.
Yep.
And Tom bounced back, and we talk a lot about resiliency. He
Yep.
was resilient this week.
Doubt Tom at your peril. Okay,
Yeah.
That's the lesson right there. Is don't bet against Brady. So we've got some news here to break. We're going to continue with the Falcons preview in just a minute. But one of the things I did write about earlier today, as it pertains to the Bucs and the Falcons, is a couple of other interesting little bits of news, and kind of how it pertains to the end of this season as well. The Buccaneers' 2023 opponents are just about known. And I've got some graphics here to kind of break these down. The home opponents, and this is kind of where it still factors in here, the home opponents for 2023, just about set. Obviously, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Saints, Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans. They're the NFC South teams. The Bucs will play those twice each year, home and away. They will be facing the Chicago Bears, and this is the current record for those teams. Yes. Right there. The Bears, one of the worst teams in the league, vying for that number 1 overall draft pick with the Houston Texans. The resurging Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars, 2 of the laughingstock teams for, probably the better part of 2 decades, right? and now they're both 8-8 right there with the Buccaneers. Tennessee Titans will also be on the schedule because the Buccaneers, Matt, will be playing not just the NFC South start to finish, but also the AFC South and the NFC North. And if you see down there at the bottom, the Bucs will either play the Philadelphia Eagles or the Dallas Cowboys. And this Week 18 has got some deciding factors in not just who the Bucs are going to play in the playoffs this year, but who they'll play next year. Because Tampa Bay finished first in their division, they will also play the NFC West division leader, which would be San Francisco, and the NFC East division leader, which will either be the Eagles if they win on Sunday. And that means the Cowboys would play the Bucs in the playoffs because the Cowboys would then be the number 5 seed in the playoffs. Or if the Dallas Cowboys win and the Eagles lose this coming Sunday, then that means that the Bucs would be hosting the Eagles, which would be the second place team in the NFC East. And then next year, the Bucs would be hosting the Dallas Cowboys at Raymond James Stadium. So that's the first part of the home slate of opponents. And then the away slate, remember, because of the 17-game schedule, Matt, there's going to be an extra
Yep.
game each year. Last year, it was the NFC teams that all had the extra home game. The Bucs used their game to go play the Seahawks in Germany, and they won that game. So right now, Tampa Bay, undefeated in Germany. They might want to look at playing more games there.
Yeah. Definitely play in Germany more than London, though.
Definitely play in Germany more than London. No doubt about it. Having said that, this is the AFC's year for the extra game. So the Buccaneers will be having 9 away games. Again, Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans all built in. But because they're playing the NFC North, they will be visiting maybe the frozen tundra. We'll see when that Tampa Bay Green Bay game is. Is it going to be in September, October? Is it going to be later in the season, like December?
That's what they're hoping for.
That's what they're hoping for. Not the Buccaneers, but the Packers. Then they'll be going to play the Minnesota Vikings right now as well. And then we talked about the Houston Texans and the Bears jockeying for that number 1 overall pick in the draft. They'll be playing both the Bears and the Texans. They've got the Texans on the slate, as well as a bad Colts team as well. The Jeff Saturday-led Colts team, which they'll probably have a new head coach, I'm sure. And then another trip to the 49ers out there west in San Francisco. They got pummeled 35-7, but because of that first place NFC South finish and the first place finish from the 49ers in the NFC West, they'll be battling each other again. So a rematch of the Packers and the 49ers games from this year. And they'll also be playing the Buffalo Bills up in Buffalo. That might be another cold weather game.
Can you imagine, if they play like 2 games in a row in Green Bay and then they go to Buffalo or something like that? That would be, that would be absolutely crazy if they went Green Bay to Buffalo. That would be so mean by the NFL schedule makers. But they have been mean to the Bucs before.
They have before, yes.
I like what you pointed out in your story about the fact that, they play some double-digit win teams like the Bills and the 49ers, the Vikings, who might be frauds. We're not totally sure.
Right.
And but then they also play some of the worst teams like the Texans and the Bears and things like that.
And the Colts,
and the Colts. So it kind of evens out there. I'm very curious about when they play the Jaguars and the Lions, because they are teams that are on the up and up, but I don't know if they can sustain that for more than one season, because let's face it, the Jaguars and the Lions have been a losing franchise for decades. I mean, the Lions had at separate times, Barry Sanders, the greatest running back of his generation, and Calvin Johnson,
Megatron,
the greatest wide receiver of his generation. And I think each made one playoff appearance each or something like that. And the Jaguars, outside of the Blake Bortles, haven't really made noise in a very long time. So I don't know how sustainable each of those organizations are. But, we'll be curious to see. We'll have plenty of time to break it down in the offseason when the schedule actually comes out next year. It's always fun when the NFL announces, they make a big announcement about this is when we are going to release the schedule. So as PFT commenter once said, it's the announcement to the announcement. So
exactly.
That's always a fun one.
I did drop those 2 stories in the chat if you want to read them about Mike Evans winning the NFC Offensive Player of the Week award on pewterreport.com, as well as the story about the 2023 opponents. So the last opponent and the regular season for the Buccaneers this year, Matt, is the Atlanta Falcons. And if you remember the last time the Bucs played the Falcons, that was a much-needed win because they were coming off back-to-back losses to Kansas City and Green Bay at the time. And it was kind of a sack fest, right? And Marcus Mariota was the quarterback. We saw, Logan Hall getting on the action. He had a sack. Deidre Sanat had a sack. It's interesting because when you look at this week's game with Desmond Ridder as the quarterback, Logan Hall actually sacked Ridder back in college when Logan Hall was playing for the Houston Cougars in the AAC. And, of course, you had Ridder as the Bearcats quarterback. So maybe Logan Hall would pick up another sack. He had one against the Falcons the first time. But Vita might not play, so we might see more Logan Hall. I would like to see some of these younger players. We talked about the quarterback position, but I wouldn't mind seeing more Logan Hall, get him some more snaps and reps, maybe rest a guy like Will Golston and Vita, and maybe play more of Deidre Sanat, right, who had a sack, his first and only sack in that last Falcons game. But play some of your backups and give some rest to some of the older players. Will Golston had a phenomenal game.
Oh,
Just
he's
a
been great the
tremendous game.
last couple of weeks. But yeah,
Yeah.
he was awesome last Sunday, and Brian Baldinger gave him a huge shout out,
Yes.
on his breakdown. So good to see Will Golston get some shine right there. And yeah, the beautiful thing about depth is if you have good depth, this is where you get that advantageous situation where you can rest Vita Vea, and not just because, oh, hey, he's our starter and we want him ready for next week.
Right.
I want to see more of Logan Hall. I think he got about
Yes.
35% of the snaps last week, and that's kind of like where they keep him to, even less than that. He actually got more last week. I want to see Logan Hall get like 55%. I mean, why not? Like, even Akeem Hicks, if you're going to play him, have Akeem Hicks on a pitch count. Let's see a lot of Logan Hall. Let's see Nacho do his thing. Let's watch Deidre Sanat. Pat O'Connor almost had a sack last
I know.
week.
I want to see more POC. Let's go.
Let's get Tupac in there. That's his Instagram
Yes.
handle. Let's get Pat O'Connor in there. Like, they have guys that want to get after it on the defensive line. Maybe even call up one of the guys from from the practice squad that they have, the defensive tackle. Like, why not? You can do that on the defensive line. You can't do that at outside linebacker because they have no one else to play. So, like, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and Anthony Nelson will have to play. Hopefully, Carl Nassib returns this week. The Bucs injury report actually came out a little bit ago. Carlton Davis did not participate with the shoulder injury, but he spoke to us in the locker room. He said he's feeling better, getting better each day. Jamel Dean was limited with the toe injury. Mike Edwards was limited with the hamstring and hip. Julio Jones did not participate with the knee injury. He's also dealing with an illness. Carl Nassib was limited with the pectoral injury. Logan Ryan did not practice with the knee injury. Donovan Smith did not practice with the foot. Vita Vea with the calf did not participate. And Tristan Wirfs was limited with an ankle injury. So a couple of those to monitor there. I would like to see Carl Nassib play just to give the other two guys a rest who have been playing 100% of the time. And I think it would be good for Carl Nassib after a couple of weeks, just get some reps in there.
I think this might be a game too where maybe you sit Leonard Fournette, right, and you go with Keyshawn Vaughn and Rashad White as the 1-2 punch. Teddy says Vaughn going to get 200 yards. We're all going to say, why hasn't he played all season? I can see it now. You mentioned maybe getting a player from the practice squad to come up, and the one player, if I could pick any offense or defensive player from the practice squad to come up, I mean, especially along the defensive line, why wouldn't it be Willington Prevalon?
That's
Bring
exactly
Willington up and have him played week 18.
That's exactly what I had in mind. Willington Prevalon, douse us with your defensive performance on the defensive line.
Yes. If Willington Prevalon gets to the active roster, we will have him on the Pewter Report podcast next week.
And we will wear a crown. I don't care if it's like a Burger King crown. We will wear,
and we will drink tea and crumpets, of course.
Yes, we shall. And you know what? Of course, we're talking about Willington Prevalon. You can't help but think of the king and the queen in England. I've been watching out of The Crown lately, and they come from a pretty rich family and wealthy background. They should be managing their money with Immuni Financial, and you should be too.
I agree.
At Immuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Drew, congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Immuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Managing your family's wealth, well, it means more to Immuni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. Folks, we're in the new year now. It's 2023. It's time to make sure your financial house is in order. Let the folks at Immuni Financial help you. They have over 40 years of experience in the Tampa Bay area and in helping clients across the country. That's right. You don't have to be a Florida resident to call on Immuni Financial. I've got most of my financial assets with Immuni Financial. I advise you to do the same. Let them advise you on how to best navigate the financial world and the economic climate we're living in 2023. Give them a call at 1-800-868-6864. help support the businesses that support Pewter Report. Give Immunity Financial a call, 1-800-868-6864, or visit them on the web at immuni.com.
Please do go and visit them. Let's get to a couple comments before we close out the show. Callie Buck said, I forgot about that was a running bit for training camp with Willington Prevalon. Hopster BB says the Cowboys are going to be one and done. They are choke artists. I do think we were talking about it yesterday. Like, who would you rather play? The Cowboys, the Eagles. We both made our points. The one point I forgot to bring up is the fact that the Cowboys, they do choke in the playoffs a lot. You can look at last season with Dak Prescott running and slides, but there's no more timeouts, and they didn't get the playoff in time. So I do think that is kind of like one of the things that.
Did we lose Matt? Did Matt freeze up, or did I freeze up? All right. Well, I think we lost Matt. I'm going to go ahead and continue, and we'll see if we can get Matt back here. But yeah, I think to Matt's point, the Dallas Cowboys, kind of our choke artists. I think the Philadelphia Eagles would be a much tougher task if the Buccaneers played with the the Eagles down here in Tampa. I was just picking up your point there, Matt, in terms of which team would you not want to play. I'm going to take the Eagles with their 68 sacks.
Yeah.
I'd much rather game plan for Micah Parsons and maybe, DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, I was going to say DeMarcus Ware, but that was that was a while ago. DeMarcus Lawrence, though, also a formidable pass rusher.
Right, but he's not a double-digit sack guy like Josh Sweat, Javon Hargrave, Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, and Fletcher Cox, who only has 7 sacks. So to me, that's kind of a no-brainer there. But yeah, I agree. I'd rather face the Cowboys, especially with their playoff choke record for sure. So a couple other notes about the Falcons. This is, again, a game that we're not going to spend a bunch of time on because we don't necessarily know who's going to play. Obviously, the Bucs want to win. Do the Falcons want to win, Matt? I mean, we've seen really, really bad Buccaneer teams in years past just kind of mail it in, right? Just show up, whether it's home or away, for the season finale and just to get it over with, right? Just to end the season. The Falcons did win last week against Arizona, 20-19. It's a bad Arizona Cardinals team. But before that, they had lost 4 straight to Washington, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, and Baltimore. They actually beat the really bad Chicago Bears 27-24. So their last 2 wins were against the Bears and the Cardinals. And before that, they lost to the Carolina Panthers and the Chargers. So if my math is correct, it's not Plant City math, but that's 2 wins out of the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the last 8 games. So they're 2-6 out of the last 8 games. I just don't know if the Buccaneers start to really, run them out of the gym, if they're going to want to hang around and really.
Yeah, and they can't even play the role of spoiler, which like other teams, you can kind of look to that in that situation, but they can't even play the role of spoiler.
They can play for pride.
Well, the one thing I do think of is, there are guys I'm sure that are on the last year of their deals, guys who play fight season to season just to make the team.
Sure.
And I feel like some guys are probably playing for their job or at least the opportunity to play on the team last year or just be on an NFL team. So I always take those guys into consideration. But sure, if the Bucs jump out to a 2-touchdown lead, I don't think Atlanta's going to come back the way that they did the first time that they played the Bucs.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if I'm the Buccaneers, I'm passing the ball like crazy, right? Like you look at the Atlanta Falcons, Grady Jarrett, 6 sacks, Lorenzo Carter, 4, Arnold Ebiketie, 2.5. That's their sack production. They've got 21 sacks on the year, right? They've not gotten better rushing the passer. They don't do a tremendous job picking off the ball either. Only 10 interceptions this season. You've got Mykal Walker, the linebacker, Richie Grant, the safety, Jalen Hawkins, the other safety, with 2 interceptions apiece. That's about it. The Falcons are not great at taking the ball away. Only 7 forced fumbles this year, Matt. 6 fumble recoveries.
Yeah.
So Kyle Pitts just has not really found his rhythm at all. He's been injured. Only played 10 games this year, 356 yards, 28 catches, 2 touchdowns. He has not been worth the investments of a top, was it top 5, top 6 pick there. Drake London has been, exceptional as a rookie. I think he's got a bright side, 66 catches, 746 yards, 4 touchdowns. But to your point, yeah, if you're the Falcons, Desmond Ridder wants to throw his first touchdown pass, right? Desmond Ridder wants to beat Tom Brady. Tyler Algier at 900 yards rushing would love to get 1,000. So there's definitely some things to play for, but we'll just see how it shakes out. I think the Buccaneers win this one big, no matter who's at quarterback.
Yeah, I think they're going to win regardless, kind of beat down on them. Hey, before we wrap it up here, let's hear a message from Age Rejuvenation.
As we age, our hormones decrease, both for men and women.
I was tired all the time, had no sex drive.
I was groggy.
I felt like I was 80 years old because everything hurt.
I came to Age Rejuvenation because I was tired all the time.
Bioidentical hormones has really made such an impact in people's lives.
I actually enjoy shopping now.
Got all my energy back.
Mind is sharp.
I feel like I'm 18 again.
It was perfect for me.
Get with Age Rejuvenation. Do it now. Don't wait.
Call Age Rejuvenation today.
Folks, everything they said is true. I feel the exact same way, except I don't like to shop that much. So, but I do feel young. I'm 50, turned 50 this year, be 51 next year. Actually, I guess later this year. But I feel like I'm 40. Age rejuvenation works. I had low testosterone, like most men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's normal. It's natural. But the testosterone therapy helps you get that boost of testosterone, helps everything from sleeping better at night to weight loss, to your mental acuity and just your vigor and your physical vitality throughout the day. I highly recommend it. Right now, they're offering $500 off of your first testosterone treatment. If you mention Pewter Report, they also have got some weight loss specials going on right now. If they're still active, it was 50% the last time I checked off your first weight loss treatment. Go to agerejuvenation.com. They've got 5 Tampa Bay area locations to serve you. Tell them Pewter Report sent you.
Okay, that's about going to do it for us today. That's a wrap, folks. Don't you worry, though. We will have another show tomorrow. It'll be myself. Adam Slavon will be on. You'll never know who else, maybe we'll have another guest on. Don't know just yet.
Just 23 hours away from right now.
Exactly. We got time. We got time. And thanks everyone for watching. If you can, just hit like and subscribe. Subscribe to the Pewter Report podcast. Takes you 2 seconds. Helps us out. Would really appreciate that. It's absolutely free. So until next time, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We will see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.